Hello, and welcome to Archvelder's Hacks with Archvelder and his amazing hacks. In this video, we'll be discussing the fastest possible ways to exit dungeons and farm gold fast and efficiently. Back in the mists of time, gold farmers had to actually run back to the start of a dungeon after killing all the mobs. It was an enormous waste of time and a massive drain on profits per hour in terms of gold, which is why I came up with the exploit that you're currently watching. This was in March 2016 and caused this channel to blow up. I found that if you entered the Proving Grounds and teleported out of it, you could then enter any dungeon and use the Proving Ground scenario again to return to the start. This method spread around the Warcraft community very fast and was quickly fixed by Blizzard. This was one of the major reasons why I often keep things secret from my Patreons nowadays, which was something I was initially very reluctant to do. Almost immediately, people began developing methods to get around the new restriction. The most popular method involved going to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms and the Seat of Knowledge above Mogoshan Palace, and talking to this panda here, and then entering one of the scenarios. Usually this scenario, the Blue Moon Festival. This scenario is favoured because it has a working mailbox. I learned this from the YouTuber Nerve Gorilla. Now, it's important to understand how to leave this scenario without terminating it. Right-click on the eye on the bottom left of your minimap and choose the option Teleport out of dungeon. And you should then return to the Seat of Knowledge in the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. And you can see that the scenario is still active and can be returned to at any moment. So now I'm going to show you an actual example. We're going to go into Hellfire Ramparts and run through and kill the last boss. And this perfectly illustrates why the method is popular and powerful, but also why I tend not to use it. You see, we teleport back to the scenario, the Blue Moon Festival scenario that we created earlier, which is still active. And now we can teleport back out again. And that will take us right outside Hellfire Ramparts. And that avoids the very long walk back. The very long walk back through the instance. However, you end up on a hold, which is not exactly ideal either for the purposes of repeat running of the instance. Now, with most instances, you will end up nearer the entrance, if not right outside it. However, there's another problem I have with this method, and that's that you have to set it up every single farming session. If you log off, you lose your scenario and you have to go back to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms and start the whole process again. Another method which I developed for my first leveling video several years ago now does not have the same problems as you get with the Blue Moon Festival technique, as it requires no initial setup. You do, however, have to delete your Hearthstone in order to use it. This method requires manipulation of the help unstuck system and is consequently much more of an explicit exploit than the other techniques in this video. That said, I've never heard of anyone being banned for using it, and I'd be very surprised if anyone ever was. I'll show you this method as I use it in Utgard Keep here. Press escape, then go to help, then click on character stuck, and then click on teleport to graveyard. The reason you delete your Hearthstone is that if you don't, at this point you'll be teleported to your Hearth location. So your character dies, and when they res, they'll be right at the entrance. The major problem with that method, obviously, is the massive loss of utility from not being able to use your Hearthstone. One of the methods most commonly recommended by gold-making YouTubers is to use your teleport to class hall ability, which I'm illustrating here in Shadow Labyrinth with my Death Knight. Now, the Death Knight can easily teleport out of this dungeon using their Death Gate ability. Now again, this method requires no setup, and indeed it's fast enough to get you out of the dungeon. The problem comes at the other end, because you have to wait a minute to use your return spell, to get outside the dungeon. Another issue with this method is that it works the same way as the Blue Moon Festival method, in that you don't necessarily get ported outside the entrance, but often get ported to a graveyard near the instance you were in, as is the case here with Shadowed Labyrinth. Also, obviously, only 3 classes can use this method. That said, this method is very accessible and generally works well enough that gold farmers who focus on their druid or monk often never use any other technique. My favourite method is the following, and I believe it's the most powerful technique in this video. There is a small amount of setup required, however you only need to spend a few minutes and you'll have enough of the relevant item to last you for weeks or possibly months. Go to your factions in Ashran, that's in Stormshield or Warspear, and there purchase as much pinch whistle nitro fuel as you think your bags can stand. And then, if you've never picked up the cooking skill, go straight down the stairs to your right and pick up level 1 cooking, and that will give you access to a cooking fire. Now I'll show you how we combine these items and use them to impressive effect to farm gold much more efficiently in the classic gold farming dungeon Alderman. Now once you've completed the dungeon, you'll want to put down your cooking fire, and you access that through the Professions tab, as you can see me doing here. And now you want to drink 2 applications of pinch whistle nitro fuel. The nitro fuel sets fire to your character and reduces their health when used near an open flame. 2 applications will kill your character and send them back to the entrance when you res. What I love about this method is that it's very quick. It only requires minimal setup time and doesn't have the issues some of the other techniques I've mentioned do. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't just start with that technique, since it's clearly the best on this list. There's a number of reasons for that, which I'll illustrate with reference to the final method I'm just going to show here. We're going to be farming Iron Docks here, which, if you follow my videos, will know is the best dungeon to farm for raw gold. Now, with this dungeon, pinch whistle nitro fuel is not the best approach to take. And it will become clear exactly why after we kill Skolog here, and then attempt to use the nitro fuel trick again. And as you can see, we've rezzed at the Iron Wharf, which is about halfway through the dungeon, the second boss, which is around a minute's run from the entrance. The same thing happens incidentally if you use the help unstuck method. Now you can use the Blue Moon Festival method here, that works perfectly well, or you can also use the class order hall teleport methods. But what I prefer to do is use a trick I learned from the YouTuber Sharkin808. All you do is create a group on pre-made groups. You don't need anyone to join it, and then just leave the group you've created. And then a countdown, a 1-minute timer will count down, and at the end of that countdown, after a minute, you'll be ported down to the instance. Now if your timing is really good, then this works perfectly. With the Iron Docks, you get ported right outside the entrance portal, and you can reset the instance and repeat the process. So you can see that every dungeon is quite individual for seemingly quite random reasons. There isn't much commonality between dungeons even within a given expansion, so you have to take each one on its merits and work out what the best method for each one is. Now you may be wondering what you can do with this information and what you can actually farm to make gold. There's a lot of material on this channel already, but for those of you who really want to push the limits of gold making, you may wish to consider signing up to my Patreon, where recently I and some of my patrons have been posting amazing content that allows you to farm some of the most valuable items in the game, much faster than even some of the most sophisticated gold farmers can. These are secrets that can't ever be revealed publicly without being immediately hotfixed. So there's the video. If you liked it, why not subscribe? Thanks for watching. This has been Archfelder.
Attack!